Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're doing very well. So in today's video I'm going to be showing you how to make this super easy and cute duckling book sleeve using cross stitch. This is a really easy method to switch it up from pixel crochet, but of course you can still do the pixel crochet method. I'm going to be linking all of the graphs down below. This has definitely been one of my favourite projects that I've made so far this year. I love to make anything accessory related for books. So yeah, let's get into the tutorial and don't forget to subscribe. So for this project I'm going to be using a 3.5mm hook. I'm also going to be using a sewing needle. You need to be using a sewing needle that is going to fit the yarn through the eye, so preferably a larger needle. And then for my main colour of yarn, I've just got this cream double knit yarn. This is about 100 grams, but I don't think that you will need 100 grams, but just to be on the safe side, I think one skein of 100 grams is completely fine. So for my secondary colours, I have got all of the colours that are on the graph. You can change these up though if you want to use different colours, but I've got a kind of sandy, neutral brown. I've got red, mint green, blue, light brown, yellow and dark brown, and then I've also got some scrap yarn which is an even lighter yellow than this, and I'm going to be using a lighter yellow and then a warmer yellow to create contrast on the duckling. So this is a perfect project if you have a lot of scrap yarn lying around, and I'm going to link the graph in the description down below, because if you want to do a pixel graph the normal way and actually crochet it, then I will include those graphs as well. Okay, so to make the book sleeve you're obviously going to need your book, and I'm going to just be basing this on a regular paperback size. So for this particular book sleeve I chained up the height of the book and then I worked across, so I did rows going back and forth this way. Normally you would crochet upwards, so you would chain the kind of width of the book and then go up, but because I'm going to be cross stitching the design, the squares actually look a lot neater when I crochet it this way, so that's why I'm doing it that way. So this book sleeve is going to be 37 stitches this way and 32 stitches this way. Again, you can change this if you want to make it bigger, but you are going to have to position the graph in the center and kind of have to work that out. I'm going to link down below a video where I explain how you can place a graph on any design so that you can adjust the graph to fit in centrally in a design. This graph works perfectly for a book sleeve, so if you've got a paperback book then you don't need to make any changes. So I'm going to be making a chain and chaining up the height of the book sleeve. So on the graph that is 37 stitches. So I'm going to be doing 37 chains plus one for the turning chain. So I'm going to make a slip knot, like that. I'm going to grab my hook and I'm going to make 37 chains plus one for the turning chain, so 38 chains. Once you have your chains, you're then going to flip the chains over so that instead of going into these V's, you're going to be going into these back bumps. You can see these back bumps have little ridges, we're going to be going into them. So I am going to insert my hook where the second chain from the hook is. I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to insert my hook into that second back bump, like that. And then I'm going to make a single crochet, just like that. And now I'm going to make one single crochet into each of these back bumps all the way across, which is going to leave me with 37 stitches. So I'm just going into the next back bump, inserting my hook and making a single crochet, and then into the next back bump, single crochet, and I'm doing that all the way across. Okay, so now I have reached the end of my row. As you can see, the row that we have just done fits perfectly across the longest part of the book. We want the row to go slightly over the book so that it's able to kind of be a nice pocket at the bottom and also at the top. So if your work is a little bit longer than your book, then that is perfectly fine. We're now going to be working on row 2, and row 2 is going to be the row we would just repeat for the rest of the book sleeve panel. So for the next row, I'm just going to turn the work. I'm not chaining one, I'm just turning the work. And I'm going into the first stitch with a single crochet. So that's this stitch right here. And I'm going to weave in this end as I go. So I'm going to loop the end over my hook, kind of just holding it there with my finger. And then I'm going to insert my hook into that first V. And then I'm going to make my single crochet as normal over that tail as well to tuck it in. And then I'm going into the next stitch with a single crochet as well, and then into every single stitch all the way across with a single crochet, tucking in that end as I go. So it would just be 37 single crochets. And then when you get to the end of the row, you would just turn the work and then start row 3, just doing one single crochet into each stitch. And I'm going to repeat that, just doing rows of single crochet until I have 32 rows in total. So you're just going to want to count this as row 1, this is row 2, and so on and so forth. So I'm going to do that off camera, and then I'm going to come back when I have my 32 rows. Okay, so I've just finished my 32 rows, and now I'm going to fasten off. So I'm just going to chain 1 and cut the yarn. And just pull it through and then pull tight. So you're going to want to make a second panel, just like this one. And then we will be attaching these panels together later on, but you just want to take one of your panels that you've made and you're going to flip it so that it is now portrait, because this is going to be kind of our graph for the pixel design. So the reason why I crocheted it this way and then we will be cross stitching it portrait is because the holes that we are going to be sewing into are a lot more aligned with each other than if we were to cross stitch this way. So if I just show you, when you kind of separate the holes, you can see that each of these 4 holes are slightly diagonal. So as you can see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, they're kind of at a diagonal direction. When we turn it this way and we kind of separate these holes, you can see that the 1, 2, 3, 4 are slightly more square and in line with each other. So that's why I think that it's best to crochet it this way, so that the lines are going down and it's much easier for you to cross stitch this way. So you can pull apart the work a little bit to kind of separate the holes and make sure that you can see everything. So each square on the graph is going to represent 4 holes. So as you can see here, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, so that is going to be 1 square, and that is also going to be 1 cross stitch. So for every square on the graph, that is 1 cross stitch. So we are now going to start cross stitching the design onto the work. So I'm going to start off with the brown basket section over here because it's just a little bit easier to do that shape together. So I'm going to basically be counting across until I reach the 22nd stitch, because that is where the first stitch is going to be the brown stitch. So it's the second row, but it's the 22nd stitch. So just to make it easier, I'm going to count across on the first row, and then when I reach the 22nd stitch, I'll just go up 1. So the first stitch of the first row is this sort of bottom corner stitch. It's a little bit difficult to see. And you can see that there are 4 holes right here. So that is going to be 1 square on the graph, is these 4 holes. So that counts as 1 square. And then if we move along, there's 2 more holes here. So right next to this square here, there's another 2 holes. So that is going to be another 4 holes. So that's another square. So now we have 1 square here, 1 square here, and 1 square here, and 1 square here. So that is how you count the squares. And if you need to see it more clearly, you can pull apart the stitches. So we have our first square, second square, third, fourth, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th, 20th, 21st, 22nd. So the 22nd stitch is right here. It's going to be this stitch right here, but we're going to go up 1, so it's going to start in this square right here. where I'm poking the needle. So all of your cross stitches are going to start in the bottom left hole of the square, and then it goes up to the top right hole, and that's going to complete your half cross stitch. And then when we go back the opposite direction, we'll be going back up through the bottom right hole and taking the yarn over to the top left to create that cross. So you can either do it so you do your cross stitch in one, or you can do them in halves and then complete the other side of the cross stitch when you go back the opposite direction. That's the way that I prefer to do it, but just do it whichever way feels best for you. So I've got my medium brown yarn and I've cut a long piece of it and I've placed it on my needle, and I'm going to find that 22nd stitch, and then I'm going to insert my needle into that bottom left hole and pull through. Make sure that you leave a small tail of yarn at the back and just hold it with your hand so that it kind of gets woven in as you go. So I'm just holding it with my finger underneath, kind of pinching it as well with my thumb, just to hold it there. So now we're going to go up to the top right hole of the square and push the needle through and pull through, like that. Make sure your tension is nice. So you can either complete the cross stitch right now by going into the bottom right stitch and pulling through, and then up to the top left stitch and pulling through. So you can do it like that, or you can do them kind of as you go in rows. So you can do it this way, which is the way that I prefer to do it, but there's no wrong way. So as you can see, the bottom row of the brown basket is 6 stitches. So we're going to be doing 6 cross stitches. So this is going to be our first one, and then our second one is going to be the next sort of diagonal line next to it. So I'm going from the bottom right stitch of this square, or it will be the bottom left stitch of the next square, pull through, and then I'm going up to the top right corner of the next square and pull through. Again, keeping kind of the tension the same. And then I'm going into the bottom left corner of the next square and pulling through, up to the top right hole and then pull through, back down into the bottom left hole of the next square and back up to the top right of the same square. So now we have 4 of these half cross stitches, and then I'm going to go back down into that bottom left of the next square and into the top right of the same square. That's 5. And last one to the bottom left hole and up to the top right. Okay, so now we have our half cross stitches, and now to complete the cross stitch like I did in the first example, I'm now going to go into these bottom right and up to the top left, and that's the same for all of these. So I'm starting in that bottom right, pulling through, then going up to that top left and pulling through, and that's going to complete one cross. Now back down to that bottom right, pull through, and back up to that top left, sorry, and pull through, and then back down again to that bottom right and bring it back up again to the top left. So I'm going to do that now all the way across. Okay, so now we have 6 cross stitches, nice and neat. When you have finished with the colour that you're using, all you have to do is flip the work to the back and you'll see these neat straight lines, and you can just thread your needle through the back of these lines to tuck the yarn away, and then you can just cut the yarn like that, and that's nice and secure. So when you're doing your variety of colours, you can just weave them in as you go. I personally, rather than going row by row, I like to do each object, because I think going row by row gives you more room for error, whereas if you start with the first row of an object and then work up and out, that makes it a little bit easier for you to count the shapes. For example, in the following row, in row 3, you'll notice that we are going to be doing 8 cross stitches, and that basically just means we're going to do an extra one either side and fill this line in. So as you can see, when you're doing it object by object, it's a little bit easier to create the shape, and you don't sort of have to keep counting the stitches, because once you've done your first lot, you can kind of count outwards or you can kind of count inwards if your shape is kind of going in or out. So I hope that makes sense. So I'm going to continue with my second row of the basket. I'm going to do my 8 cross stitches going out, and then in the following row the cross stitch only goes out on the left. So I'm just going to kind of do that now. So I'm now going to start my second row of the brown basket. So as you can see, I'm going to be doing 8 cross stitches. That means that I'll do the same amount here and then 1 either side. So I'm going to start in this bottom left square, because that's the one directly next to it, but it's up 1. So I'm going into that bottom left hole, then I'm going up to the top right and pulling through, and then I'm going back down to do my next square into the bottom left, and then up to the top right, then back down to the bottom left to do the next square, and up to the top right. Now I'm just doing that all the way across until I have 8 of these half cross stitches. So now I have my 8 half cross stitches. I'm now going to complete the full cross stitch by going from the bottom right holes to the top left. So I'm going back up from the bottom right and bringing the yarn back through to the top left to complete that cross. And then I'm going back down into the bottom right, the next square, pull through, back up to the top left of the next square, of the same square, sorry. Back down to the bottom right of the next square, and then pulling through the top left. Okay, so I'm just going to continue that all the way across. Okay, so that is my 8 cross stitches done on the following row, and now I'm just going to continue doing the rows as I would. So I'm going to come back once I reach row 8, because that's where I'm going to be like adding a different colour. So I'm going to do all of the rows up until row 7, and make sure you refer to the graph, because some of the stitches kind of come out and some stay as they are. So just make sure that you are doing the correct amount, and take your time and try and keep your tension nice and similar, because then you have some neat stitches. And if you get quite a short piece of yarn, then once you complete your row you can just thread it back through like I did in the previous row, and then just cut the yarn. But if you are doing many rows with the same colour, then you can make a much longer string. So I just wanted to add that sometimes when you go up to your next row and you're going to start your next cross stitch and it's in line with the first stitch that you did in the previous row, when you insert your needle into that bottom left hole and pull through, it technically undoes the previous cross stitch that you did. So what you can do for your first stitch when you're moving up a row and you're in line with the same stitch from the previous row is going in the opposite direction but still completing that diagonal half cross stitch. So instead of going into the bottom left hole, you can go into the top right hole and pull through, and then bring it down to the bottom left like that, so you can still complete it. And then when you go into your next stitch, you can push your needle back through that bottom left and pull up, and then continue as normal going into your top right stitch, and then obviously back down to the bottom left, pull through, back up to the top right. So if you're finding that your stitches are sometimes undoing, it's because you are technically inserting your needle into the same hole as the previous stitch. So just insert it into the opposite one, where it's still going in the same direction, and then just carry on as normal, going from left to right, and then when you go back, right to left, right to left. Okay, so now I am going to be changing colours on this row. So this is row 8. So I'm going to do my first 4 cross stitches in light brown, and then I'm going to do the last 6 stitches in dark brown. So I've done the first 4 cross stitches in light brown, and I'm going to just leave the tail at the back. So I'm going to just take the yarn off. I'm not going to cut it, I'm not going to weave it in, because I need it for the next few more rows. So I'm now just going to grab my dark brown yarn and place it on my needle. I'm going to do the last 6 cross stitches in dark brown. So I'm starting where I finished, right here. I'm going to pull through. I'm going to do my last 6 cross stitches. Okay, so I've just done my 6 cross stitches in dark brown and then my 4 in medium brown. So what I'm going to do is, because I need the dark brown for the next row, I'm going to just leave the strand as is, and I'm going to start my next row and pick my light brown yarn back up again. So I'm just going to place it on the needle. I'm going to start my next 4 cross stitches, and I'm going out to the side for the first one. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm going back. Okay, and then I'm going to do my 4 cross stitches in brown, and then you'll notice for this row there is going to be 3 red cross stitches and then another dark brown. So hopefully now you understand how to add different colours, and you don't have to cut the yarn if you're going to be using them in further rows, and just leave them as they are and then come back to them when you need to use them further up. So I'm going to complete the basket now. And then once I've finished the basket, I'm going to start on the duck, and I kind of will do a bit of a refresh for that as well. Okay, so I've just finished the fruit basket, and now I'm going to start on the duckling's legs. So I'm going to start at row 3, and it's going to be at the 6th stitch. I'm using my darker yellow colour, so I'm going to find the 6th stitch of row 3. So this is row 1, row 2, row 3, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so I'm going to start my first 3 cross stitches in the darker yellow. Okay, so I'm going to continue with the dark yellow and work up. So for the next row, I'm going to just do one dark yellow cross stitch above the left one. So that is going to be the 6th stitch of row 4. And because I'm going up one, I'm going to start in the top right hole, otherwise the stitch will come undone. So it's just one cross stitch for this row. And then the same for the row above it. So that's the start of the leg. I'm going to continue up doing the dark yellow section, and then after that I'm going to do the pale yellow section and then add the brown detail and also the blue flower. I'm going to do that off camera because hopefully now you understand how to do the cross stitch pattern. So I'm going to come back and then I'm going to show you the final kind of stages of the book sleeve where we attach the panels together. So I've just finished doing the cross stitch design. I'm now going to be attaching the two panels together. So you're going to want to make sure that your panels are on the right side out. So obviously you're going to have your design on one part of the outside and then place the panels together like this. Now you have two options. You can either leave the side section open, or you can leave the top section open, and I'm going to be leaving the top section open because I like the idea of the book sleeve being portrait and then you slide the book in portrait as well. And then with your main colour, so the cream, you're going to make a slip knot. And you're going to grab your hook. And because I'm leaving the top part open, I'm going to start in the top right corner. Because I'm left-handed, I'll work down, across and back up. If you're right-handed and you're doing the portrait version, you will be attaching the yarn at the left, working down, across and up that way. If you're doing it landscape and you're left-handed, you'll go into the top right corner, go down, across and up, and vice versa for the right-handed people. If you are doing it right-handed, you'll go down, across and up that way. So I'm going to insert my hook into that kind of top right stitch of the front panel and the top right stitch of the back panel. So I've got both of them on my hook, and then I'm going to pull my slip knot through both of those like that, and then I'm going to chain one to attach it like that. So now I'm simply going to single crochet through both sides all the way down. So I'm going to insert my hook into the same stitch that I just went in of the front panel and also of the back panel, and I'm going to make a single crochet through both of these panels. So I'm pulling the yarn through both of those stitches to attach them together, and then I'm going into the next stitch of the front panel and the next stitch of the back panel, and I'm going to single crochet those together as well. And I'm continuing all the way down the side, making single crochets through both panels and making sure that the stitches line up nicely so that you are doing it through the correct stitch. And when you crochet your panels together, you want to make sure that you are crocheting it on the design side up. So you don't want to be crocheting them this way because then you won't get the neat stitch at the front. So I'm going to continue that all the way down, and then I will continue it all the way across the bottom. And at the bottom there aren't really any stitches, but I'm just going to line the panels up and single crochet as best as I can across the bottom, and then the same up the other side edge. So I'm going to stop once I get to the top left corner, so I'll meet you back once I get to that corner. So I've just done all of my single crochets around the border, and now I'm just going to do a loop of single crochets around the top just to neaten the top. So I'm literally doing exactly what I did around the border. This time I'm going, rather than crocheting the panels together, I'm just going around the top edge. I'm just going to weave in the ends as I go, and I'm just going to start by going into the next sort of space, making a single crochet, and then into the next space, single crochet, and then all the way around. Okay, so I've now reached the other side, so I've gone all the way around the top, and now I'm just going to fasten off. So I'm going to slip stitch into the kind of top left stitch where I've just single crocheted, and make a slip stitch, and that's just going to join everything together, and then I'm going to chain one and fasten off. And then this is the book sleeve all done. If you want to leave it like this, I am going to add a little ruffle around the edge. So I'm going to take my cream yarn again, make a slip knot, and I'm going back into that top left corner. I'm going to go down along the bottom and back up, and I'm not going to go around the top, I'm just going to leave it as this section here. So I'm just going to insert my hook into the top right corner stitch and then pull my slip knot through, and then chain one to attach it. And this time I'm going to go into the next stitch rather than staying in the same stitch where I just made the chain one. I'm going to go into the next stitch and I'm going to make 3 half double crochets. Okay, and then I'm going to do the same in the next stitch, 3 half double crochets. Into the next stitch, 3 half double crochets. And then into the next stitch, 3 half double crochets. Okay, and then I'm just going to repeat that all the way around until I reach the top left corner. Okay, so I've just finished the last 3 half double crochets, and now I'm going to chain one and fasten off. And then with my sewing needle, I'm just going to weave in the ends onto the inside of the book sleeve, and then the book sleeve is all finished. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing and giving this video a thumbs up. And I really enjoyed making this project with you all, and please tag me on Instagram to show me all of your wonderful creations, and I will see you in the next video. Bye guys.